Before marrying the man she loved, a wealthy businesswoman secretly pretended she had lost everything. She wanted to know if his love was real or if it was built on the comfort of her success. But the man's response left her speechless. What did he do when he believed the woman he loved had nothing left? Stay with us as this emotional story slowly reveals the shocking truth. It was a cool Friday evening in the city. Inside a beautiful penthouse apartment on the top floor of a luxury building, Chidinma sat at her dining table reviewing documents from her company. She owned a chain of high-end beauty supply stores across 3 provinces. Business was strong. Life was comfortable. Sitting across from her was Emeka, the man she had been dating for almost 2 years. He worked as the general manager of a well-known restaurant downtown. He earned a decent living, but nothing close to what Chidinma made. That never bothered either of them. Their relationship was calm, honest, and full of warmth. Emeka looked up from his phone. "You've been staring at those papers for an hour. Come eat something." Chidinma smiled without looking up. 5 more minutes. "You said that 20 minutes ago," he replied. She laughed softly, put the documents aside, and joined him on the couch. They talked about small things, work, a movie they wanted to see, a recipe he had been experimenting with at the restaurant. It was one of those quiet evenings where nothing extraordinary happened, but everything felt right. But something had been weighing on Chidinma's mind for weeks. Something she had not told Emeka. 3 weeks earlier, Chidinma had attended a gathering with some of her old university friends. It was a reunion dinner at a rooftop lounge. Everyone was dressed well, laughing, catching up. Most of the women had come with their husbands or partners. Stories filled the table: promotions, new homes, children starting school. Then Chidinma noticed one of her closest friends from university sitting quietly at the end of the table. Her name was Rukayat. She had come alone. Chidinma remembered Rukayat's husband clearly. Back in university, the two of them had been inseparable. Everyone admired how deeply he cared for her. After graduation, they married young. People called them the perfect couple. Chidinma walked over and sat beside her. "Ruka, where's your husband?" Rukayat looked at her for a long moment. Then she gave a small, tired smile. "He left." Chidinma blinked. "What do you mean he left?" Rukayat stirred her drink slowly. "My business collapsed last year. I lost the stores, the warehouse, everything. I was in serious debt. I tried to recover, but it kept getting worse." She paused. "At first, he said he understood. He said we would figure it out together. But after a few months, things changed. He became distant. He stopped coming home early. He complained about everything. One morning, he packed a bag and told me he could not do it anymore." Chidinma sat frozen. Rukayat continued. 3 months after the divorce, I found out he married someone else, a woman who owns an import business." She let out a bitter laugh. 10 years of marriage, 2 children, gone, all because the money disappeared. That night, Chidinma could not sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Rukayat's words played over and over in her mind. She thought about Emeka. He was kind. He was patient. He had never given her any reason to doubt him. But Rukayat's husband had also seemed perfect for 10 years. A question began to form in her mind, and once it arrived, it refused to leave. If everything disappeared tomorrow, if the business crashed, if the money vanished, would Emeka still be there? She hated herself for thinking it. But she could not stop. Over the next few days, Chidinma made a plan, a dangerous plan. She decided to pretend she had lost everything. She would fake a business collapse, act as though she were broke, and see how Emeka responded. She would give it time, maybe a few months, and watch carefully. She made arrangements in secret. She spoke to her business partner, a trusted friend named Josephine, and explained what she was doing. Josephine thought she was out of her mind, but agreed to help. She also hired 2 actors to play the role of debt collectors. On a Saturday morning, Chidinma and Emeka were having breakfast at her apartment. Music played softly from the speaker. Emeka had made omelets and fresh juice. They were laughing about something silly when a hard knock came at the door. Chidinma froze. She knew what was coming. She opened the door. 2 men in suits stood outside. One held a brown folder. "Miss Chidinma," one of them said, "we are here on behalf of your creditors. Your company has defaulted on its obligations. Legal proceedings have begun. You are required to vacate this apartment within 72 hours. Emeka stood up from the table, his face changed completely. "What is going on?" Chidinma took the folder with shaking hands. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind many times, but standing in front of Emeka, watching his face fill with confusion and concern, made her chest tighten. After the men left, Chidinma sat on the couch and buried her face in her hands. Emeka sat beside her. He did not speak for a long time. Then he placed his hand gently on her back. "Talk to me," he said. "Whatever this is, just tell me." Chidinma told him the story she had prepared. A supplier she trusted had stolen from her. Contracts were broken, investors pulled out. The debt had piled up faster than she could manage. Now the creditors were closing in. Emeka listened to every word without interrupting. When she finished, silence sat between them. Then he leaned forward and held both of her hands. "Okay," he said. "We will figure this out." Chidinma looked at him. "Emeka, I might lose everything. The apartment, the car, all of it." He nodded slowly. "I heard you, and I said we will figure it out." She searched his face for hesitation, for doubt, for the flicker of a man calculating his exit. She found nothing but calm resolve. Within 3 days, Chidinma moved out of her penthouse. Emeka helped her pack. He loaded boxes into his car without complaining. He drove her to his apartment, a modest 2-bedroom flat on the east side of the city. It was clean but small, nothing like what she was used to. Emeka carried her bags inside. "It's not much," he said, looking around as if seeing his own place through her eyes for the first time. "But it's home." Chidinma looked at him. "It's more than enough." That first night, Chidinma barely slept, not because of the smaller bed or the unfamiliar sounds of the neighborhood, but because the guilt had already started. She was lying to a man who had just opened his home to her without a second thought. Days turned into weeks. A routine formed. Emeka left early each morning for the restaurant. Chidinma stayed home, pretending to search for work and meet with lawyers about her debt. In truth, she spent her days at Josephine's office, quietly managing her business from behind the scenes. Every evening, Emeka came home tired but never empty-handed. Sometimes he brought leftover dishes from the restaurant. Other times, groceries he picked up on the way. He always asked about her day. He always listened. One evening, Chidinma decided to cook for him. She prepared jollof rice with grilled chicken and fried plantains. When Emeka walked through the door and smelled the food, he stopped and smiled wider than she had seen in weeks. "You made all this?" he asked. "Don't sound so surprised," she said, pretending to be offended. They ate together, talking and laughing. For a moment, the weight of the lie lifted, but only for a moment. Then the first real test came. A woman named Vivian, who worked as a hostess at Emeka's restaurant, had been showing interest in him for months. She was bold about it. She dressed well, spoke confidently, and made no secret of her attraction. Emeka had always kept his distance, but after word spread that Chidinma had lost everything, Vivian became more aggressive. One afternoon, she approached Emeka during his break. "I heard your girlfriend lost her business," Vivian said, leaning against the counter. "That must be stressful for you." Emeka looked at her calmly. "It's fine. We're managing." Vivian tilted her head. "You know, a man like you deserves someone who can match your energy, someone who isn't dragging you down." Emeka put down his coffee. "Vivian, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to hear it clearly. Chidinma is not dragging me down. She is the woman I love, and her situation does not change that. Please don't bring this up again." Vivian's smile disappeared. She walked away without another word. Emeka never mentioned this to Chidinma. She only found out weeks later through Josephine, who had heard it from a mutual friend who worked at the same restaurant. When Chidinma heard the story, she sat still for a long time. Her heart ached, not from relief, but from guilt. The second test came from someone Chidinma had not expected. One Saturday morning, Emeka's mother, Mama Ngozi, arrived at the apartment unannounced. She was a strong-willed woman who loved her son fiercely. When she saw Chidinma in the kitchen wearing a simple house dress, instead of the designer clothes she was used to seeing, her expression shifted. Emeka greeted her warmly. "Mama, you didn't tell me you were coming." Mama Ngozi looked around the small apartment. Then she looked at Chidinma. Then back at Emeka. "We need to talk," she said. That evening, after dinner, Mama Ngozi asked Chidinma to excuse them. Chidinma went to the bedroom, but the apartment was small. She could hear everything. Emeka, his mother began, her voice firm. What are you doing with your life? What do you mean, Mama? This girl, she has nothing now. No business, no money, no apartment. And she is sitting in your house, eating your food, while you work every day to keep both of you alive. Emeka's voice stayed steady. Mama, she is going through a hard time. It could happen to anyone. Mama Ngozi raised her voice. But it did not happen to anyone. It happened to her. And now you are carrying the weight. Emeka, you are 31 years old. You should be building your future, not supporting a woman whose future is uncertain. Mama, I love her. Love. Mama Ngozi repeated the word as if it tasted sour. Love does not pay bills. Love does not build a home. I have seen this story before. A man pours himself into a woman who brings nothing to the table. And when he finally wakes up, his best years are behind him. Emeka was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. Mama, I hear you. I respect you. But Chidinma is not a burden to me. She is my partner. When things were good, she never made me feel less because I earned less than her. She treated me with respect. She never once looked down on me. Now that things are hard for her, how can I turn my back? Mama Ngozi stared at him. You are making a mistake. Then it is my mistake to make. His mother stood up, picked up her bag, and walked toward the door. I have said what I came to say. When you are ready to listen, you know where to find me. The door closed. The apartment went quiet. In the bedroom, Chidinma sat on the edge of the bed with tears rolling down her face. She had just heard the man she was deceiving defend her honor to his own mother. The guilt was becoming unbearable. Weeks continued to pass. Chidinma noticed that Emeka had started cutting his expenses. He packed lunch from home instead of eating at the restaurant. He cancelled his gym membership. One evening, she noticed his favorite watch was missing from the nightstand. Where is your watch? She asked. Emeka shrugged. I left it at work. But 3 days later, Chidinma accidentally found a pawn shop receipt in his jacket pocket. He had sold his watch, the watch his late father had given him. Chidinma went to the bathroom, closed the door, and cried silently for 20 minutes. She had seen enough, more than enough, but something held her back from telling the truth. Fear. Fear that when Emeka discovered the lie, he would never forgive her. Then the third test arrived on its own, without her planning it. Chidinma received a text message from Emeka one afternoon. He asked her to check his email for a delivery confirmation, because his phone was acting up and he could not open the attachment. She opened his laptop and logged into his email. The delivery confirmation was there, but beside it was another email from a real estate agency. She clicked it. It was a lease agreement. Emeka had been quietly saving money for months. He had put down a deposit on a slightly bigger apartment in a better neighborhood. The move-in date was set for 2 months from now. The lease was in both their names. Chidinma read the email 3 times. He had never said a word about this. He was planning a future for them, even while believing she had nothing. He was not waiting for her to recover. He was building anyway. That evening, when Emeka came home, Chidinma could barely look at him. He noticed something was wrong. Are you all right? He asked. I'm fine, she said, just tired. But she was not fine. The lie had grown too heavy. She could not carry it anymore. The next day, Chidinma asked Emeka to leave work early. She told him she had something important to discuss. He sounded worried on the phone, but agreed. When he arrived home, she was sitting in the living room, her hands clasped together. Sit down, she said. Please. Emeka sat across from her. His eyes searched her face. Chidinma took a deep breath. Then she told him everything. She told him about the university reunion, about Rukayat, about the fear that had taken root in her heart, about the plan she made, about the fake debt collectors, about Josephine's involvement. She told him that her business was still running, that her money was still there, that the penthouse still belonged to her, that everything he believed for the past 3.5 months had been a lie. When she finished, the room was completely silent. Emeka did not move. His face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, then slowly something darker, pain. He stood up without a word and walked to the window. He stayed there for a long time, his back turned to her. Emeka, she said softly. Don't. His voice was flat. Don't say my name right now. Chidinma's heart broke. Emeka turned around. His eyes were red, but his voice was controlled. So every morning when I went to work worried about how we would make rent. That's it, you were sitting in your partner's office, running your company. Every time I sold something, every time I cut back, every time I defended you to my mother, to Vivian, to everyone, you were watching me like I was part of an experiment. Emeka, I'm sorry, I was afraid. Afraid of what? His voice rose for the first time. Afraid that I would leave you? So instead of trusting me, you lied to me for months? Do you understand what you have done? Chidinma stood up. I know it was wrong, but I needed to be sure. Emeka shook his head slowly. You didn't need to be sure. You needed to trust me. That's what love is. He walked past her, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the door. Where are you going? She asked, panic rising in her voice. I need to be alone. The door closed behind him. Chidinma collapsed onto the couch and sobbed. She had expected anger, but hearing those words from Emeka cut deeper than anything she had imagined. Emeka did not come home that night, or the next. He stayed with a friend from work. He did not answer her calls. He did not reply to her messages. On the third day, Chidinma drove to the restaurant where he worked. She waited outside in the parking lot until his shift ended. When Emeka walked out and saw her, he stopped. Please, just 5 minutes, she said. He shook his head. I can't talk to you right now, Chidinma. I need more time. How much time? He looked at her for a long moment, then turned and walked away. Chidinma sat in her car and stared at the steering wheel. She had never felt this kind of emptiness before. She had money, she had success, but the one person she truly wanted was walking away from her because of her own actions. Days passed. On the 6th day, Chidinma went to the restaurant again. This time she did not wait outside. She walked in during the lunch rush. The restaurant was full of people. Staff moved quickly between tables. Emeka was near the back, reviewing orders on a tablet. When he saw her walk through the front door, he froze. Chidinma walked straight toward him. Every eye in the restaurant turned to watch. She stopped in front of him, and without hesitation, she dropped to her knees on the restaurant floor. The room went quiet. Emeka, she said, her voice breaking. I was wrong. I was selfish. I let my fear control me, and I hurt the one person who never gave me a reason to doubt. You sold your father's watch for me. You stood up to your mother for me. You signed a lease with my name on it while believing I had nothing to offer, and all I gave you in return was a lie. Tears fell freely down her face. She did not try to stop them. I am not asking you to forget what I did. I am asking you to give me one more chance. Not because I deserve it, but because what we have is real. Everything you showed me during those months was real, and I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret staying. The restaurant was completely silent. A waiter stood frozen with a tray. 2 customers near the window had stopped eating. Emeka looked down at her. His jaw tightened. His eyes glistened. For a long, agonizing moment, he said nothing. Then he reached down and took her hands. Get up, he whispered. Chidinma looked up at him. I said get up. She stood slowly. Emeka pulled her close. He held her tightly, and for the first time in nearly a week, she felt his warmth again. What you did was painful, he said quietly into her ear, and I will not pretend it didn't hurt. But I didn't fall in love with a perfect woman. I fell in love with you, and if I walked away from every person who made a mistake, I would be walking alone forever. Chidinma buried her face in his chest and cried. Someone in the restaurant started clapping, then another person, then the whole room. In the weeks that followed, they rebuilt what had been shaken. It was not instant. Trust, once broken, does not repair overnight. There were difficult conversations. There were moments of silence that felt heavy, but both of them showed up. Every single day they showed up. Then, 1 month later, Chidinma planned something Emeka did not see coming. She invited him to what she described as a small dinner with a few friends. When they arrived at the venue, it was not a small dinner. The hall was decorated with lights and flowers. Over 100 people stood waiting, friends, family, colleagues. Even Mama Gozi was there, standing near the front with a complicated expression that slowly softened into a reluctant smile when she saw her son walk in. Emeka looked around, stunned. What is this? Chidinma took his hand and led him to the center of the room. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a small box. She opened it. Inside was a ring. Emeka stared at it. Then he looked at her. I know this is not traditional, Chidinma said, her voice steady but emotional. But nothing about us has ever been traditional. You loved me when you thought I had nothing. You protected me when I didn't deserve it. You were already building a future for us when you thought I couldn't contribute. So I am standing here, in front of everyone who matters, asking you to spend the rest of your life with me." The room held its breath. Emeka's eyes filled with tears. He let out a small laugh, the kind that comes when emotion is too heavy for words. Then he nodded. The room erupted. Cheers. Clapping. Mama Gozi wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and looked away, pretending she was not crying. But Chidinma was not finished. She reached into a second envelope and handed it to Emeka. He opened it slowly. Inside were the keys and ownership documents to a brand new restaurant, his own restaurant. Fully equipped, ready to open, Emeka's hands trembled as he held the papers. He looked at Chidinma, completely speechless. "You once told me your dream was to have your own place," she said. "Now you do." 2 months later, on a warm afternoon, surrounded by the people who had watched their love survive the worst test it had ever faced, Chidinma and Emeka stood together and exchanged their vows. "Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for staying until the end. I truly hope this story gave you something meaningful to carry with you. One of the most important lessons from this story is that real love reveals itself not in seasons of abundance, but in moments of hardship. When everything falls apart, the person who stays is the person who truly loves you. But this story also reminds us of something equally important. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. Testing the people we love through deception, no matter how well-intentioned, can cause deep wounds that take a long time to heal. What do you think about Chidinma's decision to test Emeka's love? Was she justified because of her fear? Or did she cross a line that should never be crossed? I would truly love to hear your thoughts, so please share your opinion in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and would like to hear more stories like this, please subscribe to African Tales by Ruth and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And if this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone you care about. It truly helps the channel grow. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next story.